Okay, I've thought about doing this class for over a year and this composer, and I couldn't figure out an angle. So we're going to get through this in a way that's going to be interesting and relevant, I hope, because I, this man's music is very unsettling, but what he did was he changed all of music in the 20th century. So that's why we're talking about him. We like people that disrupt things sometimes. A little chaos is good every now and then, a little disruption. And I didn't want to bore people. I didn't want to bore you guys because we talk about music and being emotional and hard, full of heart and melodic. And actually, what he did was take away melody, but he did it on purpose. And he didn't start like that. He started being a highly romantic melodic composer. I want to run through his life a little bit, but I want to talk about what was happening with art in the 20th century and how this madness had to almost happen. And so, yeah, let's get in today. We're going to get into the life and the work of Arnold Schoenberg. I've mentioned Schoenberg before because we talked about Stravinsky and Schoenberg being the biggest composers of the 20th century. They only lived a few miles apart and they didn't talk at all in LA. That was after the war and stuff. Why am I talking about him? Why would I want to talk about somebody that took melody on purpose away from music? He got to a point where he was so disillusioned with tonality in music. Tonality meaning what key is something in, for the most part. We're going to be really simple with terms. I want to make this really basic and simple for us to grasp, because I don't want to do what my teachers did and get into this thing because some of his music can be really hard to listen to, very boring. And he was full of expression, and that's one thing all artists. So he wasn't devoid of heart or expression. He was actually intensely expressive. And so with this music that we're going to be listening to and looking at, he was part of the expressionist music, especially German expressionism. We all like that. We're all, expressive. Our job as artists is to be expressive. He was also a very great painter in his own right. Along with Kandinsky, and Kandinsky is one of the most famous abstract artists. So in the 20th century is interesting because from the Renaissance up until the 20th, everything was progressing in a way from very formal, very boring, going on to romantic by the 19th century. By the 20th, everyone's like, what are we going to do next? And art kind of goes into either it's going to pander more toward, not cheap entertainment, cheap music, but what are we doing with it? And artists are going to break down. They're gonna, and especially Schoenberg. He's so disillusioned with theory, with harmony. There some artists, and not just Schoenberg, but painters, filmmakers. Although film's still really new, but writers, James Joyce, they're going to say it's getting ridiculous here. We might need to destroy these systems that have been supporting us for hundreds and hundreds of years and reinvent music and reinvent literature and reinvent art. So that's why this is important. That's why he's really, I think, really important. Okay, let's leave Rushmore. Let's leave Houston, go to Vienna and talk about this guy's Jewish ghetto, born in a very poor Jewish ghetto, and was mostly self-taught, Schoenberg. So our timeline, 1874 is born in Austria, dies in 1951 in LA. Like I said, mostly finished his later part of his life in Brentwood. So who's going on? I mean, he's friends with Mahler. Mahler is intensely romantic. Wagner's pretty much out. Liszt is there, and Liszt is one of the first composers to use chromatic atonal music. So when I say atonal, that basically means no key signature. It's hard to, you're not going to hear a C major scale. You're not going to hear chord progressions 1, 4, 5, C to F to G. None of that stuff. I mean, it's not even disguised. Debussy disguised it, but with that, Prelude to the Afternoon of the Faun, our thesis was that one note changed all of history. Well, how did I just say that? No, Schoenberg actually used that one note and said, okay, if that changed it, how can we really destroy all these previous systems of music? And destroy it, but reinvent it. So he took that one note at the end of the 19th century, and by 1908, Schoenberg is really having problems with tonality. And he developed a following with Berg and Webern, mostly the second Viennese school. First Viennese school is Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven. Second are the people I just mentioned. And they're going to get away from tonality into freer forms. So that's the part where the expression comes in. It's very stream of consciousness. And what else? So stream of consciousness, who's doing that? James Joyce is the king of that. And James Joyce comes in with Ulysses in 1922. And by that time, he's reconstructing, deconstructing all of literature. Kandinsky's doing that with art. Other people are going to be doing that. Picasso's going to do that. So Schoenberg is doing this with music. So that's, really cool, man. But he started romantically. I mean, in 1896, listen to how pretty this Nocturne for Strings piece is. By 1908, he's with his string quartet number 2. It's really getting out there, and we're losing a lot of melody, all of melody actually, and we're losing. He's creating a riot really here. And in order to put all of these atonal ideas to use, you need a system. So what he does in 1923 is not the first, but mostly it's attributed to him. 1923, he's going to create a 12-tone row. Why 12? Well, there's 12 pitches, right? So it's the invention of serialism, 12-tone music. Charles Ives did a little bit of this, and we did a whole class on Charles Ives. But this is the repetition of notes or elements of music. And you can't, for the most part, in a very simplistic way, if you start on C, you can't use another C note until you've gone through all 12 other pitches. I don't want to get too much into this, but that's the system mostly. So you can't repeat, the no note is repeated within the row. So you have to go through all 12. This gets very advanced, and I don't want to do that. And so that's but that's how his system is. That's to guarantee nobody will listen to this kind of music. That's the formula to do that, perhaps. So he's doing that in the 20s. Because of the war, he leaves and comes to America. 1935, he lectures at USC and teaches there for a little bit, but mostly in 36 teaches mostly at UCLA. and he's a professor there, and moves to Brentwood, plays tennis with George Gershwin, and hangs out in the 30s with Hollywood people, and Harpo Marx would be on his tennis court. So this very serious academic, intellectual guy, it's funny, he was so superstitious, and it almost kind of killed him in a way, because, and it's weird because, so 1950, his 76th birthday, some astrologer wrote warning him that the year was a critical one. 7 plus 6 equals 13, 76 equals 13, and he was scared to death of the number 13. And he had been, and of course he dies on Friday the 13th, July 1951, before midnight. And he was anxious and sick and depressed, and so those I'm not really that into numbers and astrology, but it is kind of weird that was a coincidence. So I don't want, that's just such a brief little thing on Schoenberg. I don't want to go too deep into it, because I want to keep some of these views up. But he's credited with transforming classical music, and that's important because of atonal music. I think that gave ground to really good film music, because it sounds like scary music, doesn't it? A lot of these pieces sound very uncomfortable, and if you put that with, I watched The Shining the other day, and that movie is filled with music, and that's one of the scariest movies of all time, and I think part of that is because of the score, and the score is from composers that wrote atonal music. So that's the relevance, I think, perhaps today. It can be very effective music to create feelings and moods of uncomfortability. And so that's the relevance today, I think. So it was good. Schoenberg's a genius. I'm not devaluing it. It's not something I want to listen to in the car, ever, probably. But I thought we'd just talk about, so moving forward, when I mention Schoenberg and atonal music, we understand what that means, that it basically means turn off the radio. No, it doesn't, but you know what I mean. Okay, we did good work. This is good, I think. Now, okay, all right. Tomorrow we'll have fun, and hope you enjoyed it. Okay, bye.